Alright, so I'm going to be looking at putting together the headstock assembly on the Sipp, so we're going to need to address some of these bearing issues. This is it's like an idler roller, and maybe that sounded bad. And then we've got this bracket assembly with this roller on here. This is the tensioner. That also has got the same sick sound to it. And actually these two rollers look like they're identical. This one's just in the bracket, but it looks like we take this cap off and we'll get this roller out. I think it's going to be pretty much a carbon copy. It's got the same kind of design, which appears to be that you've got this like large nut on the top here and one on the bottom. When you turn one, the other turns, which makes me think that if I hold one of these and turn the other one, I might be able to unscrew this assembly and actually get a look at what's in there for bearings. So, let's see what I can find. Grab that. Alright, so these are 1 1/4 inch nuts on this thing. So I'm just going to hold this in from turning with my adjustable. And see how tight these are. Don't know if that's a left-hand thread or... I think it's actually going to be easier for me. I think this will be easier. If I put this on the floor and put my knee on it, I can actually do this. Ow. That ain't going to do it. Alright, so what I did was I just went with the pipe wrench. I was able to grab it better. And again, keeping it on the ground, pipe wrench underneath kind of like this. I was able to put enough force on it, and sure enough, this just unscrews. It's just a big nut. And you can see a very dirty, filthy, cruddy ball bearing sitting right in there. And I'd be willing to bet this is just a light press fit into these bearings. But I gotta get a hammer that is not going to damage anything. My good old dead blow. It's a Stanley. Yep. Alright. And of course, doing that, now this bearing is nasty. This bearing will have to be knocked out from the inside here. Well, the crud that's falling out of there. Alright, so I just went over to my pile of drifts and things. This is actually an old reamer that was damaged really bad in the end, and I decided, since it was a nice long skinny drift, made a good drift. Ah, never mind, it was very hot today. Heat got to me. Brains give me trouble. That was the easy one. Getting this one off of here. I wonder if that nut unscrews from there. That would make getting this off a lot easier. Matter of fact, it's going to have to, because looking at this, this is a reduced diameter right here, so that probably is made the same way, so that's sitting on a shoulder. So I can't make the bearing go in this direction if I wanted to. It's going to have to go off that way. which means I'm gonna have to get that nut off. I'm going to hit this on the wire wheel so I can see. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing this right. Well, that's not what I was hoping to see. That does not look like this is a nut that comes off of a shaft that this is the end of. So if this does unscrew, then it must bolt into this. This must be a threaded hole on the end of this. I still think it needs to come off. I certainly don't want to put any prying force in there. I had the screwdriver in there trying to hold it, and I don't think that's the key to this. So I think I gotta put the wrench on the outside of this and grab this rod. Probably gonna have to put the pipe wrench on here, which is gonna mar this up. But the good news is that this part of the shaft actually isn't the business part of the shaft. It just kind of sits way down here inside this big old giant roller, and so in other words, if I bugger this all up, no one's gonna know except you and me. So just don't tell anybody. Here are the teeth marks. That's the evidence at the scene of the crime, the smoking gun. But it did work. And I was wrong. That is a nut. I couldn't see the separation line there, but another nut. Identical to that one. This bearing just slid off. So there we go. So I really am so sure that the other roller is the same way. I'm not even going to take that one apart tonight. I am just going to verify that these two bearings are identical, which I'm pretty sure they are, and know that I need to put on my shopping list for bearings. Fafner, another Fafner bearing here, 202A. The old Fafners. Yeah, I live 3 doors down from the Fafners. What do we got? Something different here? Come on. Nope. It's my eyes playing tricks on me. They're both Fafner 202As. I almost guarantee you that's a good bearing number. That's nice. So, at least these bearings in these little rollers and these 3 big bearings here, these were 205s. These were in the lower gearbox. They're all just normal old bearings. So it's going to be easy to get those. You know, where it gets tricky, where it's going to be a little bit trickier on me is when I go to like get this weirdo bearing here that we found in this assembly. You know. So, hey everybody, it's been actually over a week since I was messing around with these bearing sizes, figuring out what they were and putting together my little shopping list for bearings. I went to my favorite bearing place, and the guys there, as usual, did not fail me. They rose to the challenge. The 205 and 207 bearing numbers, turns out those are just the equivalent of apparently 6205, 6207, so we're pretty sure on that. But the 202A bearing number, which I believe was on these little ones here, yeah, this bearing number right here was the one that really gave them a challenge. Now, they're well aware of Fafner bearings. I think Teledyne, or I forget what the name of the company is now that bought Fafner. First they called one of their major wholesalers, talked to the people there. They couldn't come up with anything as far as to explain what a 202A was. The A was what was throwing us. they're pretty confident that it's the same as a 6202. So the end result was they actually even called the people over at Fafner, or whoever owns Fafner now, and talked to their customer service. They couldn't do anything with that number. But the one thing that I learned right out of the gate was that just because this drill press was made around 1915, I was wrong to assume that these were American, that it was the English system of measure. In other words, the reason why every one of these bearings that I measured came up with a very unusual dimension that wasn't equivalent to a fractional dimension was because what we determined was these are all metric. So these are the 202s, so they gave me some generic 6202 bearings. These are 6202 RS. Now the RS probably just indicates that they're sealed. If you notice, these bearings are sealed, which I'm glad actually about that, because now I don't have to worry about what was supposed to lubricate these bearings, which was probably just a squirt of oil every time you went to use them. Now I'll have these nice sealed units in there, and this will keep all the dust and everything from getting inside there, so that's going to be good. But the question is, how do we make out on size? So I'm going to go back here, and I'm looking at my OD on here, and that's right there. Let's make sure these are round. No reason why they shouldn't be. And we'll put the new one in. And the new one, oh, no, it looks like we're good. 300 and, what do we got here? 1.377. Right on the dot. And I don't really have to worry. I've got some play this way, but I don't think I have to worry about it. This is 435 thousandths. 430 thousandths. A little bit shorter. That's okay though. We can live with that. Oh yeah, the bore. And the bore is just under 600 thousandths. 500 and call it 88. And we're right on the money there. That's a match. I'm not going to bore you. I'm going to check all of these right now. Alright, so I'm happy to report that these are all a good match size-wise. And the only difference being that on all of the replacement bearings, they're all, well, this big one is going to now be a sealed one. Okay. This one was not a sealed bearing. This new one will be. These are all cheap bearings. I asked for cheap because I knew that I wasn't going to be putting a ton of hours on this machine, and I can always come back at a later date and replace these bearings with a higher quality bearing if one of them should fail. But I'm not going to do any of that until I actually see this drill press operating and see that it's going to be a useful addition to the shop. And then these bearings here, there were 3 of these, you can hear. That's one of the ones from the gearbox. Here's the replacement. These do have a little kind of a cap seal, but, well, you can't hear anything. They're completely quiet.